So we've had the vision from the ICAO. Now we're going to get into the international airports. And for that, we have Fernando Vistrain, CEO of the International Airport of Norman Manley, Jamaica. He's going to be facilitating and introducing the next panel. So Fernando, whenever you're ready, you have the floor. You can introduce the panelists. Well, thank you. It's my honor to be part of this symposium. My name is Fernando Vistrain. My greetings from Kingston, Jamaica. So our colleagues, Joan, Parrado, head of security of the Dorado Airport, a very interesting airport with quite significant security challenges. Then we have Nicholas Ratledge, he is the security manager at WASI at ICAO, and then Francisco Javier Aramburo, service manager at the International Airport of Guadalajara, Mexico. So without further ado, let's give the floor to Joan. He's going to talk about some very interesting security matters. Fernando, Javier, thank you very much. Nicolas, welcome as well through the interpreter. Well, the agenda was going to be different today, but because of specific airport issues, I asked Nicolas to let me go first. So thank you for that. I'm just very happy. I was here present to listen to Ricardo before, and Jose, it was just a great opening to what I want to say now. I've been part of several sessions with GAP, and I've always made the point of the CMS. I've been hammering down everyone with it. I'm going to touch upon one component. I think Nicholas will talk about the culture, which is key for a CMS. Let me figure out how to share my screen. Just a minute.
A ver, pensé que ya la estaba compartiendo. No sé si ahí ya la ven.
Perfecto.
Listo, perfecto. Bueno, entonces les decía que afortunadamente José y Ricardo me dieron.
So as I was saying, Jose and Ricardo gave me the perfect opening for my presentation today. Here we have the bullseye again and the 7 components of the SEMS. My apologies, just a minute. Sorry, I just got a call. So here you have the 7 components of the SEMS. We're going to talk about responding to incidents or incidents response and how the El Dorado Airport has been working to set up a procedure on this.
In terms of contingency exercises, basically the airports are forced by the Annex 17 and the international regulations to carry out an exercise like this once a year at the office and once every 2 years on the ground. So we created a protocol and help to have an added value for the airport, not only the airport, but all the authorities participating in these exercises. What is the procedure for it? Well, we basically established stages to execute this contingency exercise. In each of these stages, we have a list, a checklist in order to have a very close follow-up of all the activities that need to be carried out. And additionally, we have timelines established to guarantee that the exercises have the result that we expect. So what are these stages? Basically, we have meeting where we choose the scenario. I will now tell you what is it about. Then we have the planning stage, when once we have decided what is the scenario we want to try. Then sensitization or awareness stage to tell all the actors involved what is their role and how they are going to give a response to the exercise. Then executing the exercise. On that same day, we evaluate. And finally, we draft a document with the opportunities for improvement. You can see the months ahead of time where we start to work on that. Choosing this scenario is 8 months before the event. The planning should start 6 months before. The awareness and qualification stage is 4 months, then executing 15 days until the day of the event, and then the evaluation is on the day of the exercise. Each of the parts is broken down into these items. This is choosing this scenario. We first review the track record of the previous exercises. We basically review that what we've done in the previous exercises. And once we review that, we then review the current threats at international, local, and national level. We review the or we analyze the capacities of the organizations involved. Then we define what do we want to measure, what is the answer that we are looking for, or the response that we look for. Then we create a committee for the contingency exercise, and we do the risk analysis to check that this exercise would have the goal to mitigate a risk at the airport. Then we move on to the planning stage. This is the second one, where we basically include the airlines and the authorities. We validate again what are the capacities that we need for this contingency exercise. Then we review the resources that we need in case it is going to be an exercise where we involve an aircraft or facilities or others. Sometimes from the airport itself, we try to find or we try to test the impact on certain facilities of the airport, and you first need to validate these kind of assets or resources, and they need to be included in the planning stage. Then we start to recognize all the information that we have, if it is a known scenario, if it's a new scenario. And then we start with the process to choose our evaluators. This part is really important for the airport because from this evaluation that we carry out, we have a learning, of course. And from this learning, we can establish an action plan that will help us to reduce gaps and to mitigate vulnerabilities in the airport in terms of response to potential incidents. Now we move on to the sensitization stage or awareness stage. We check whether we have the knowledge that we need to recognize this kind of incident, not only us as airport, but also the authorities. 2 years ago, we decided as an airport to test a scenario where we used biological weapon to kidnap an aircraft, and we started to do the validation with the authorities. Many of them didn't have the knowledge necessary to attend or assist these kind of incidents. So we had to start specialized qualification process and assessing new threats. Then the airport community raising awareness among the authorities to define what are the action protocols for each of the threats that we are going to manage, and then review again the system of incident dashboard to check whether we have the necessary structure to face them. Now, execution. As I said in the beginning, this is 15 days before the event. We, as an airport, start to check the activities. We validate whether all the resources and scenarios are there in order to execute the exercise. We have a check-in list, a checklist. We check, for example, the equipment, anything that we may need for every person who will be involved in the exercise. We evaluate or we validate the evaluators. We check absolutely everything. We review the contingency plans, and we also carry out the communication activities. This entails reviewing that we are involving the communication department so that for the airport community, everyone is clear in the sense that this is going to be an exercise or that this exercise is going to be done. Now, in the evaluation state, we have to review and we have to raise awareness among the evaluators and observers. What do we want to evaluate? What is the scope of the exercise? What is the scenario that we are testing? We want to get familiar with the lines they are going to work with. We want to have experts on board that would allow us to provide a proper evaluation according to the scenario that we are testing. This means, for example, if we speak about a scenario where we are using biological weapons, we need to include the health authorities, the Ministry of Health, so that everyone that is relevant is involved. Then guaranteeing that out of the notes that we are taking from the exercise, they would be all reflected into a document that will help us to have a good evaluation and a good feedback about the exercise. And once we finish this exercise and we finish the work of the evaluators and observers, it's important to generate a report where we can see the opportunities for improvement. They should be focused on different perspectives: authorities, airport, airlines, and different stakeholders that would help for the decision to be as successful as we all expect from our point of view as airport and from the point of view of the airlines. In the end, we want to review everything so that these contingency exercises become an exercise or a tool that help the airports to be prepared for all the situations that may come up on a daily basis. If the airports do not establish a process that helps to create drills that really put to the test the organization and the response of each of the authorities involved, in the end, this would just be a theoretical exercise, but not an exercise that really is of help and that is really useful for the airports to be really prepared in the case of those kind of scenarios that may happen in the airports. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. I will leave the presentation available, and I am now willing to answer any questions you may have. Fernando. Joan, thank you very much. It is a really interesting topic, and the challenges that we have ahead of us with COVID in terms of qualification of the airport community and the decision of these type of exercises are so important, are really crucial. Thank you, everybody. And I leave you with Nicolas. All right, now we will move on to our next speaker, Nicholas Ratledge. He is the security manager of the ACI. He will share very interesting information with all of us. So without any further ado, I would welcome Nicholas and give you the floor.
Good morning, everyone, and fellow delegates to the Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico Security Symposium. I had to give it a try. My name is Nicholas Ratledge, and I am the manager for security at Airports Council International. I am here today to talk to you more about, from an airport's perspective, what we can do from airport operators in developing and creating strong security cultures, especially during and after this COVID-19 pandemic. So exactly, when you ask yourself, what exactly is security culture? And what is it, where do you begin from this part? So when you look at a definition of security culture, it is a set of norms, attitudes, or assumptions that are involved with the daily operation of an organization and are reflected by the actions and behaviors of all people within the organization. This should highlight the fact that it is everyone's responsibility. The fact is, with health measures becoming a strong focus these days, security culture has become more under pressure to remain a very strong and robust system, and is visible and prominent in aviation as well. There is a risk there are some security cultures that is weak and gives rise to proper vulnerabilities in terms of staff not being motivated, or security awareness not being diminished because of not having the training due to the priorities of the COVID pandemic. So therefore, it remains really important. So looking at what an effective culture is about, it is recognizing that it is critical to businesses, the success, establishing an appreciation of security practices, aligning to core business goals, and making sure that this is a core value rather than an obligation from the of the staff. So where exactly do we begin? In developing a positive environment, you have to look at the different benefits of what they involve with. Some of the benefits is that employees could be engaged and take responsibility for security issues. Levels of compliance with the measures do increase. The possible risk of security incidents and breaches are reduced by encouraging employees the way they think. And employees are more likely to report behaviors and activities of concern. Therefore, good security culture is an organization is an essential component of a strong regime. So when looking and developing a different security culture, we highlighted there's 5 different elements that are involved in creating such a strong security culture for airports themselves. Looking at leadership, which is looking at written goals and the management involved, people having an awareness of what is around them, the roles and responsibilities, the training required to ensure that the security culture objectives are met, and finally, how to communicate across the airport and company to promote these strong security cultures. So when looking at leadership, it is getting your top management to understand the importance, both security culture as such, but also the importance of their endorsement with regards to establishing a security awareness program. The support will send the right attitudes and signals to the entire organization, and that is exactly what you're looking for. The ecosystem of security, we all have different roles and responsibilities which need to be established. The bottom line is that stakeholders need to commit to a certain level of basic security awareness and to be spread amongst the group company altogether. And then finally, management needs to be highly receptive to any feedback, both positive and negative, to understand where the problems are and where to address the certain concerns when it comes to having the strong leadership in promoting such a strong security culture. When looking ahead, and the next element of a security culture is providing the different training, awareness, and motivation to do so. Some of the highlights you must look at is that vigilant behavior demonstrates that routine measures, such as looking at a CCTV camera and the presence of security staff, are just not measures in place, but also having alert employees look at and likely to spot suspicious behavior and hopefully finding ways to report it. Now, the key piece is having a highly motivated workforce to influence these behaviors. Unless employees understand the threats that they are and their organization face, they will not be inclined to change or how they act. It's key to educate employees about the nature of the threats, their possible impact, and the role all employees can play in countering the threats.
Nicolas, sorry for the interruption.
Sure, no problem.
Sorry, could you please maximize your presentation, please?
Is not maximized?
No.
Oh, okay. Let me see. It's not, my slides are not moving?
No.
Let me see if I'm, oh, sorry, am I sharing the wrong screen here? Let me, screen 2. Are we there? Okay.
Right.
How's that?
Thank you. Perfect.
I apologize for that. Sorry. I believe so. And looking at the final piece there, training for our employees should include an overview of the different threats and the roles and responsibilities and such. So staff members should be provided with real-life examples of relevant poor security behaviors and their consequences. And for example, possibly prepare some story within the group about security breaches, the impact of what a breach could be and how it could have been avoided. Conversely, examples of good security behaviors should be publicized, and the resulting successful impacts always should be detailed as well. So when looking at providing security awareness training, you have to look at how effective your training could be when it comes to the program being promoted. One of the key parts is looking at possible language barriers when providing the security awareness training. Also looking at, to many people, they feel it's just a requirement for this job, but not necessarily a core value. Training must also look at the different legislative requirements, understanding of insider threats and possible behaviors within an organization moving forward. The training also, when looking to be effective, must be updated to look at the ever-changing landscape when it comes to security, and also provide these annual refresher programs moving forward. To test the fact that your program is working properly, it is critical to validate this understanding when looking at how the security awareness course that being put forward is working. It is also looked at, you need to look at this when you are first issuing this program, and also in reviewing on every renewal of the security awareness program. This does empower employees to be more proactive when it comes to security and drive their accountability towards looking and promoting stronger security cultures at airports. So when looking at the strategy, communication strategy, the changing security behavior requires a clear vision and a coordinated strategy to ensure that the message and program are consistent, practical, and meaningful. So what steps do you need to take to make sure that this works properly? Stating before, you need to gain buy-in from the senior management. Support from internal communication teams is also critical to this success as well. These colleagues will understand the best ways of communicating with employees and can suggest various lines of communications, i.e. through staff letters or intranet. The aim is to make both senior managers and internal communications personnel aware of the threats, the aims and the objectives of the campaign, and why it's essential to run such a campaign. Secondly, one leader of the campaign should be appointed to be its visible champion for the team, to take ultimate responsibility for its delivery, and, if required, report on its progress to the CEO. It can be helpful to explain that while understanding the risks, the campaign will also provide positive messages about the impact of a workforce with a unified approach to security. It is also helpful to invite any other help involvement in pitching these communications. One of the first outputs from the campaign team should be a simple agreed strategy from which a project plan can be developed. This does not need to be any complicated. To develop such a strategy, you should look at the following questions of why you're doing this. Why is the airport undertaking such a campaign? What is it that exactly you want to achieve, and what is your vision? Other questions could be, what are your existing staff behaviors, good and bad, in terms of vigilance and reporting? And also, do employees know what suspicious activity is, and how can they report this immediately? And then finally, looking and developing and applying a project plan. The fourth step in creating a project plan is to promote clearly defined timelines, deliverables, and responsibilities. An example of this project is being shown right now on this screen. Each step should be broken down into different tasks, assigned a start and end date, and the person responsible for its implementation being identified. This will enable the project to be tracked and managed effectively. So looking at the example project plan, you would have to start by identifying your various goals, making sure you know who the stakeholders are and what methods you want to do, collecting the different metrics involved. Then you start collecting the metrics as a starting point to understand and know where your concerns lie. You start planning and planning the training and communications plan, then followed by conducting that training, and then implement these different incentive programs, followed by the last 3 points of your continuous improvement with regards to the program moving forward. So again, an example of how a project plan could look when you want to execute such a security culture program. So when looking ahead at when you want to communicate this strategy, there are various tools that are available to you that you can use. Such examples here are looking at a weekly newsletter, which could outline the threat and how staff behavior can protect and aid protective security, emphasize the role that staff members do have to play. Also, different internet articles, such as Thinking Like the Enemy, promoting that idea that having the idea of using a different mindset of how the person who wants to cause a disruption or concern, how they were thinking and how to know what kind of behaviors to look for, possible small behaviors to look for and how to report it. Through a blog, perhaps, you could describe any bad security behaviors seen by security and explain why they are bad. Detail on what good behaviors are as well. Indicate when the security measures are strong, but explain that staff can help enhance them by being aware of their own behavior, being vigilant and reporting in. One of the key pieces too is having security awareness events and showcase all protective security measures that are in place. For example, visit to control rooms, meeting version patrol dogs, meeting the patrol people themselves. Security officers can endorse the campaign, convey to staff that they have what role they have to play in assisting site security, and welcome reports. Another key piece too is looking at posters and wallet cards around the airport and having it available to staff on what activity is to look out for. Also be able to provide phone numbers on posters with reminders of how to report immediately, and also another phone numbers to facilitate when looking at reporting off-site. And then finally, knowing how this is working by conducting staff surveys, which involves short interviews with staff to ascertain if the key messages have been worked on and obtained, how people feel about the campaign, and if their behaviors have changed significantly at all. So, to help with staff being easy to join in on a security culture, you have to give that impression of vigilance and hopefully making behaviors easy to adapt. So in encouraging employees to practice these behaviors must be easily adoptable. This means providing simple steps that employees can take to improve personal security behaviors and ensuring that they know what to look for and exactly how to report suspicious behaviors. Vigilance on the part of staff members can be conveyed, for example, by simply asking from a customer service perspective, "Can I help you?" if something appears out of place or something is acting differently. The prospect of staff engaging in a customer-friendly way is a strong deterrent on how for a hostile possibly conducting some sort of surveillance. Another key piece is to make sure that the instructions are clear and easy and can be widely communicated through the organization. Consideration is to give members of staff a wallet card or an electronic equivalent for smartphones, such as a digital image featuring the reporting phone number. And as you can see on the screen here, these are some examples at what you can have in your pocket as part of a wallet card, or something that can be digitally transmitted through a phone to help and assist staff when they're looking for suspicious behavior. Sorry, I went too far. Another part of making easier behaviors easy to adapt is to apply different posters. These can apply to staff as well. Successful campaigns have helped improve security awareness at airports and have been actively marketed as such. I wanted to give an example. For example, Frankfurt Airport in Germany, as shown on the right, conducted their security awareness program by looking at a bird's eye approach to security in different themes. If you can see within the pictures, they specialized in different months, one month being looking at unaccompanied baggage, while another one theme looked at on how to avoid unauthorized access through open doors. And again, these are good behaviors and ideas and posters to promote positive security culture programs and awareness at airports. Employees do tend to underreport counterproductive behavior and do not intervene when they look and see unusual activities. So operators should educate staff on the importance of reporting concerning workplace behavior. Operators, one thing that she could look into is to set up programs and mechanisms to promote and reward possible interventions. However, reporting on a colleague is sensitive, and the airport may wish to consider other initiatives before implementing. It is important, though, that every staff member knows that his or her report has been taken very seriously. It is equally important that, it is equally important that each report is analyzed and that it is followed through to make sure there's action taken on it, not only with immediate action if a risk or vulnerability has been identified, but also with possible root cause analysis so that the future issues can be mitigated. Additionally, airports may wish to offer employees rewards for good security behaviors, such as reporting of suspicious items or behaviors. This has to be carefully managed so that false reporting is not encouraged and that security does not become a competition, obviously, between staff members. Also, one thing, security culture can also be promoted together with a just or no blame culture. An established concept in the safety world, a just culture does refer to a system through which deficiencies or incidents can be reported anonymously. This does allow a person to reporting to be exempted from any punishment under very specific circumstances. In other words, it's making sure that the reporting is valid and it's not focusing too much on the don't want to make it I'm sorry, what I was trying to say. It allows the organization to learn from mistakes and focus on improvement rather to then point blame at people. Exemptions from this punishment should only be granted where the individual has not acted willfully or in an intentional negligence. In case of aviation or in case of any incident, the individual should not be exempted from punishment if the person is shown to be willful or wrong in this area. So this is another area that you can support as part of your security culture moving forward when it comes to thinking about a no blame culture and looking at improvement versus trying to blame certain people. That is the conclusion. I just wanted to highlight quickly exactly from Airports Council International what we do and what we are about. We are looking at the collective interest and act as the voice of airports around the world to promote excellence and in management and operations. We are represented globally with our world office in Montreal and supported by the different regions in ACI in Panama City, Washington, Casablanca, Brussels, and Hong Kong. We do work for our members, which covers 96% of our global traffic. And as of January 2020, we serve 668 members and 1,979 airports in different countries. In the ACI LAC region together, we have 270 airports in 34 countries. So we have a very strong reach and promoting excellence for airports and moving forward. One of the programs that I think has been interest for that we promote from ACI with our airport group is the APEX program, which is a peer review program based on safety or security reviews. The APEX security program did start in 2017. It does provide access to a global network of expertise to provide different best practice and compliance with SARPs. And we are in the process now of developing virtual offerings that are due to the fact that we can't do any site-to-site visits due to the COVID pandemic moving forward. So one final thing too, the different products we provide global training in a whole range of areas, including operations, safety, security, and learning, and also provide detailed publications from best practices in security, looking at risk assessment, how to manage security, looking forward, addressing insider threat, and landside security. I just wanted to say thank you very much for having me on board for the presentation today, and I look forward to any future questions you may have. Thank you.
Nicolás, muchísimas gracias por tu participación.
Thank you very much, Nicolás. And now in the Q&A session, we will welcome our friend Francisco. He's the service manager at the International Airport of Guadalajara. He will join Nicolás and myself for the Q&A. Nicolás, you mentioned in your remarks a few times people's behavior, both personnel and passengers' behaviors. And today, with the new security measures around COVID, the face masks, and face coverings, and PVC coverings, it's harder for security staff to analyze the behavior of passengers. Would you think so? Because their facial expressions are harder to identify since the faces are covered. So what do you think are the main challenges brought about by COVID, and what would be the balance we need to strike when introducing technology to replace what COVID has taken away in terms of identifying passenger behavior?
Thank you. Yes, it is a great question and a strong challenge for sure. We do ask people to identify, look at different behaviors from a very high level perspective. We're not asking to be strong behavior analysts, but when it comes to this, but yes, usually when you look at behaviors, it's looking at actions possibly from a face point of view of how people's eyes move, how people move their head or look around to see where possible behavior is coming from. Of course, now when you're covered with a mask, it does provide an additional challenge. And looking at how do we integrate this, you still have to look at other possible behaviors that people may look at. For example, if a person seems to be wandering in an airport back and forth, that don't necessarily have any sort of facial features, there are some things to focus on. So it's looking at various behaviors that can be more easily identified. For example, if a person is looking a little strange, that doesn't seem to be focused too much on what an airport, what they're looking around in their surroundings, but also being vigilant on similar things that don't necessarily require health measures. For example, looking at unattended baggage, where you can address that and finding ways to report such behaviors on that front. So one of the challenges now, especially when it comes to security and in the checkpoint, is we're looking at how to include health measures in the security checkpoint and what different levels we can be involved with and what areas that need to be focused on when it comes to the looking from the security checkpoint and security in health itself.
Gracias, Nicolás. Javier, desde tu punto de vista y con la experiencia que has tenido en el aeropuerto de Guadalajara.
Okay, Javier, from your point of view and with your experience in Guadalajara, what is your experience regarding the difficulties of the security staff to identify these odd behaviors at airports?
Bien, bueno, pues ya lo comentaban ahorita, sin lugar a dudas, el tema de COVID y ha introducido estas nuevas dificultades para el personal que desempeña labores de seguridad. Sin lugar a dudas, hemos trabajado mucho en la parte de tecnologías, como lo comentaba ya Joan. En el aeropuerto de Guadalajara hemos implementado en los accesos hacia los puntos de inspección unas
upon
cámaras que nos
accessing
permiten a
inspection
nosotros
points or
identificar
checkpoints,
los rostros
we
de las
have now some
personas y con
cameras to
eso
identify
apoyar también al personal de
faces.
seguridad
We do facial
para
recognition, and
poder
that supports security
hacer
staff
estas identificaciones.
in
Sin
their
lugar a dudas ha sido todo un
identification
reto,
efforts.
como ya lo
Without
comentaban,
a
el tema
doubt, it's
del uso
been
de
quite a
cubrebocas,
challenge
mascarillas, todo esto
using
dificulta sin
the
lugar a dudas
face masks and face
el que se pueda
coverings.
hacer el
Without a
trabajo por
doubt,
parte del
make it
personal,
harder
pero creo que hemos
for our
venido
staff to do their
trabajando
job.
bastante
But
bien en esa
I
parte y
would
sobre
say
todo
that we've
con el
been
tema del
working very
entrenamiento
well
del
in this
personal,
regard,
introduciendo
particularly with the
estas nuevas
personnel training.
situaciones que se pueden presentar derivadas
We've
de
been
la
facing
pandemia.
these potential situations arising from the pandemic. Thank you. COVID-19 has brought about other challenges regarding our personnel behavior. Would you say so? There are different groups and international bodies from different countries who have offered very important information about how somebody can get infected with COVID. But earlier in the pandemic, information or misinformation on the internet was rampant. How do you think this can have impact on the behavior or performance of our security staff? Because probably they might be fearful they can get sick on the job. And what do you think would be the best way to turn this situation around? Javier, please.
Bien. Bueno, sin lugar a dudas, yo creo que el miedo existe desde el año pasado, cuando, digamos, estábamos en el punto máximo de atención de la pandemia, como bien lo comentas.
When we were at the peak of the pandemic, as you said,
todos
in the spring,
empezamos buscando las mejores prácticas para llevar a cabo nuestros procesos
looking
de
for best
seguridad y dar
practices
el
for our
cumplimiento
security
al tema
processes, and we
evitar
all
contagios
wanted to,
toda esta parte que nos
avoid
ha traído el
contagion.
COVID.
And
Y sin lugar a dudas, creo que nos hemos ido adaptando muy bien a la parte
I would say we have
de los procesos sanitarios, la sana distancia, los temas de las desinfecciones y todo esto que hemos
to the
venido
social
aplicando para los
distancing and
procesos.
disinfecting and
Y
all
sin
these
lugar a
measures
dudas,
we've
creo
built into our
que lo que nos
processes.
ha apoyado bastante ha sido la tecnología. Ya lo comentábamos
Now,
nosotros
technology
desde
has been
cámaras termográficas que
a
nos
great
permiten
source of
medir
support,
la
starting with
temperatura
the
de nuestros
thermal cameras
pasajeros
to
sin
take
tener que
the
tener
temperature
contacto con
of our
ellos, la
passengers
implementación de
without
nuevos
having
sistemas
contact with them,
de
implementing
esclusas para evitar
new
nosotros tener el guardia que tenga
systems
que tener contacto con el pasajero, contacto
so
con
that
el boleto, el pase de
guards
abordar.
don't really need to
Todo este tipo
touch the
de avances en
passengers
la
or their personal
tecnología
stuff.
y la implementación de
So technology
estas
has been a
medidas
great enabler here.
que se han venido llevando a cabo.
And then, like I
Creo que
said, these other
nos han
measures that we've
permitido salir a buen
implemented,
puerto con
social
el tema de la
distancing
atención de
and
la
the likes,
pandemia.
have
Sin lugar a
been
dudas,
very helpful to
nosotros
navigate
hemos trabajado y hemos buscado
the pandemic
siempre
successfully. In any case,
el
we've
apoyarnos en las mejores
always
prácticas de la
tried
industria.
to
Digo, al
support
final
ourselves
trabajamos mucho para lograr
in the
el tema de
industry
la
best
certificación
practices. We've
de
worked
ASI,
hard to
Health
get to the
Accreditation, y
ACI
creo que eso ha
accreditation,
sido algo muy
and
bueno para nosotros y que nos
that's
ha ayudado
actually been
a
great
sacar
for
adelante
us.
el tema de los
It's
procesos
been
en
really
Guadalajara.
helpful to get processes ahead at Guadalajara. Thank you, Javier. Nicolas, what are your comments about this question?
Yeah, again, I think when it comes to dealing with misinformation, it does provide that additional challenge for the security screeners and passengers alike to understand and know what are the challenges moving forward, and when it comes to integrating proper health measures into the security process. This is where it goes back to when I'm telling when you develop a security program, when it comes to the communication piece, that the champion involved makes sure that the message that is being brought forward is complete, it is concise, and it is relevant and factual to what is put into today. There are was mentioned before. What Javier was mentioning before, in that looking at implementing some forms of technology when it comes to monitoring staff is something that ACI is definitely looking into when it comes to addressing security and health. And the funny thing is, when it comes to this piece, innovations and different innovations, I think, have been moved forward in this realm to help, not just from a security and also a facilitation piece, in involving different innovative technologies, such as facial recognition or CCT analytics on how to look at crowds and how to address such concerns, moving them forward in an innovative form, which was never done before. So yes, I think it's definitely a challenge looking ahead, and we're also looking into helping our airports address it in this context.
Muchas gracias. Ambos mencionaron que el uso de la tecnología sin duda será la forma en la que
Thank you.
podemos.
You've both mentioned that using technology will be the way to tend to the challenges COVID has brought about, and will be very helpful to maintain security levels in airports around the world. The use of technology right now is bringing about a new difficulty, which is the use of private data. Legislation differs from one country to the next, and therefore there is a mix of regulation around the world, and that one can hardly unify all of that. So for the ACI, what do you think are the most pressing challenges for 2021 regarding privacy of data? Because it's, managing passengers' information is absolutely key. We've been talking about e-passports around the world, and electronic information on vaccines. But in order to have this or undertake this, passengers will have to allow for that information to be disclosed. So what challenges do you see ahead in 2021 in this field?
I think, Fernando, thank you for that question. I think you've addressed it, is that it is not one size fits all. It's not the same around the world. Each country is different when it comes to handling data and personal information and moving forward. And so that I can see is being part of the challenge, is being able to work with closely and advocate with our various governments to provide specific some form of guidance on how this can be looked into, and how the protection of data is required from a security and even from a facilitation perspective. Each country has their different levels of how they want to share the data. There are also the different risk strategies and risk tolerances as well. And so it's working closely and trying to address, work with the various governments on how to share, to make sure that the data is safe, is secure, and provide guidance to do so. Thanks.
Gracias, Nicolás. Una pregunta más.
Thank you, Nicolás. One more question. Has the ACI received more cyber attack reports, or you have not seen a sensitive increase or sensitive low increase around the world? What have you observed regarding cyber attacks?
Thank you again. When we look at a cyber attack, cybersecurity incidents from an airport perspective, we have noticed that there's been a strong increase on phishing attacks when it comes to cybersecurity, in trying to extract data from this sort of from that front. But when it comes to trying to promote any acts of unlawful interference, it's still hasn't been as prevalent as these different phishing attacks, and therefore we do keep an eye and look at from a cyber perspective, what is the best course forward. We have developed guidance on cybersecurity for airport executives that is available at our ACI website for executives to look into and provide best practice and guidance on how to better protect their security, physical infrastructure, IT infrastructure, and software from any cyber attacks moving forward. So thanks.
Gracias, Nicolás.
Well, thank you. Javier, earlier in our section, Joan mentioned the difficulties we've had to perform exercises in real life regarding the different scenarios that might come to happen. So for the Guadalajara airport in particular, what has been the experience, the difficulties, the coordination that has happened between the aviation authority in Mexico? Because as we know, like anywhere else in the world, we need to comply with national regulation and with parameters issued by the ACI, such as, for example, executing tests every 2 years. So this type of collaboration between the GAP and Mexican airport authorities, how did that play out? Well, it's been a challenge for us, without a doubt. Joan mentioned work groups and how we could approach this, define the scope with them, prepare the exercises, just to make sure that the exercises we receive are useful and we can improve in terms of security. That has been the main challenge. Now, we've worked closely with authorities. We've worked to do this analysis with them and work on these exercises. And
hacia dónde queremos llegar con
I think
ellos
we still need to work
tener
on
estos
how
resultados que nos
far
sirvan
we need to get with them
para mejorar en temas de
and
seguridad.
having these results so that
Si
we
bien,
can
como lo comentaba, hemos
improve
tenido
on
estos grupos de trabajo,
cybersecurity.
hemos visto que no todos tenemos el mismo conocimiento acerca
not all of us
de
have
y
the same
cada uno, perdón, tiene
knowledge.
sus propios enfoques, ¿no? En materia de seguridad, y
Each
eso
of
de
us
alguna
has
manera es
our
lo que
own
enriquece el
security
ejercicio.
approach.
Sin
And that's
embargo,
what makes the
estamos
process so much
trabajando
richer.
todavía más para
In any
involucrar
case,
a las
we're
autoridades
working
y a
more and
todas
more
las
to get
dependencias que se
authorities
involucran aquí en el
engaged and
aeropuerto
get the
de
dependencies
Guadalajara
involved
para poder
here at
participar de manera
Guadalajara
más
Airport
proactiva y más
to
activa en los temas
participate more
de seguridad,
proactively
tanto en los ejercicios
in
de
all
simulacro como
security
en estos temas de
matters,
identificación de amenazas y trabajo en las
both
gestiones de riesgo.
identifying threats and managing risks. Thank you very much, Javier. Well, without a doubt, all the information shared and the experience has been really helpful, very interesting. Using technology will give us some balance and will help us move ahead with security measures while guaranteeing to our passengers and users that even with COVID or any other pandemic, airports have the responsibility to maintain the level of security for all users. So Joan, Nicolas, and Javier, thank you very much for everything you've shared.